About her role in Showgirls, our next guest has said, if you can't get noticed wildly dancing naked while coming out of a volcano, you might as well give it up. So, ladies and gentlemen, be nice. I have a feeling she may be a little shy. Please welcome one of the stars of Showgirls, Gina Gershon. Here she is.
But one movie wears its NC-17 label proudly, and that's about all it's wearing. A sizzling story about strippers titled Showgirls is this weekend's exclusive ET movie preview.
Can you come back tomorrow night? Can you come back every night? I wonder what my parents will think of this. Are we still on the air?
How did we get to this point? I mean that as a serious question. How did a storied institution like Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer release not just a movie about strippers, but an NC-17 movie about strippers? What led to Showgirls landing in movie theaters? Well, as they say, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. This is the prologue to Showgirls, a special two-part Does This Movie Suck? Sometimes a studio pairs the right filmmaker with the right writer, and they hire the right cast. The resulting film is one of a kind, and you say, wow, they really caught lightning in a bottle with this film. Usually that's a positive thing. With Showgirls, MGM caught lightning in the bottle, but in all the worst ways. What I find truly remarkable about the story of Showgirls is how many times MGM could have either said no or completely shut the production down. But they just didn't. Sometimes a film becomes an unstoppable train of business decisions and hype. Showgirls was one of those films. The story of Showgirls is told in all of its wonderful detail in James Robert Parrish's book Fiasco, A History of Hollywood's Iconic Flops. It's the book I'll be pulling from to tell you the story. So where do we start? Well, there were four main players in getting Showgirls into theaters. Let's start with the film's writer, Joe Eszterhas. Born in Hungary and relocated to the US when he was a child, Eszterhas started his writing in newspapers, moved on to books, and finally screenplays. His first film was the 1978 movie Fist, starring Sylvester Stallone. Joe would have two more films which would be enormous hits. 1983's Flashdance and 1985's Jagged Edge would cement Eszterhas as a major player in Hollywood. He would write some smaller films with varied success, and then Eszterhas would agree to write the romantic thriller which would put him at the top of Hollywood's list of writers. That film was 1992's Basic Instinct. Eszterhas would be paid $3 million for his work on that film. That amount of money was almost unheard of for writers at the time. Basic Instinct would go on to be a huge smash hit. His next two films, Nowhere to Run and Sliver, would also make a profit, so Eszterhas had put himself into a position where he could do almost anything he wanted. As Parrish writes in his book, Eszterhas would go with producer Ben Myron for a meeting with Charles Evans, the brother of Robert Evans who produced Sliver for Paramount. During the meeting, Eszterhas pitched an idea he had about an end-all account of lap dancers and stage performers in Las Vegas. Charles Evans was taken by the pitch and cut Eszterhas a check for $2 million. The final film contract would result in a $3.2 million payday for Joe Eszterhas if the film were to be completed. When I call Showgirls a runaway train, this is what I'm talking about. There was an obscene amount of guaranteed money behind the production. Shelve it and you get nothing and you've wasted a lot of money. If the film actually gets released, well, then at least you have a shot at making your money back. Any businessman isn't going to drop $2 million on something that doesn't at least have a chance of making a profit. Eszterhas's pick for director surprised the team behind Showgirls. Joe wanted to re-team with Dutch-born director Paul Verhoeven, who directed Basic Instinct. The two notoriously clashed during the production of the film, but patched things up after the film made $353 million worldwide. Money tends to tie up loose ends. Basic Instinct was Verhoeven's third American film after RoboCop and Total Recall. Both of those were smash hits. The reteaming of the guys behind Basic Instinct would be a huge project and huge news. So the train just keeps on picking up speed. The third main player in the story of Showgirls is the studio that Verhoeven worked for. Carolco Pictures was a huge player in the movie world from their first release in 1976 to their eventual bankruptcy in 1995. They put out huge action movies like Rambo and Terminator 2, as well as some art house movies. The problem was set in the studio's early days when the head of the studio, Mario Kassar, overpaid for the rights to Rambo. The tone was set and the studio was spending large amounts of cash and not necessarily making it all back. In 1993, a year after Basic Instinct was released, Carolco was in pre-production on Crusade, a big-budget epic set in the Middle Ages, which would be directed by Paul Verhoeven and star Arnold Schwarzenegger. The film was designed to bring a huge influx of money into Carolco, which was taking on water. The budget for Crusade would quickly balloon out of control, even for Carolco, and the film would be scrapped to focus on 1995's Cutthroat Island, which was on course to bring in the money that Carolco so badly needed. The story behind Cutthroat Island is pretty notorious. It actually has a home in Parrish's book in the previous chapter, but needless to say, the film's budget ballooned out of control, and just before the film was set to hit theaters, Carolco would file for bankruptcy and begin liquidating their remaining properties. Stargate and Showgirls were sold to MGM. Stargate was a huge success, and Showgirls, well, there's a reason I'm talking about it. And that's the story of how two Hollywood power players got their little naughty film into the hands of one of the biggest movie studios in the world. But not really. MGM was a big name, but even at that time, MGM was also taking on water, and only kept afloat by the French bank that also had a stake in, say it with me, Carolco Pictures. This movie is truly like moving deck chairs on the Titanic. Now 2 movie studios, financed by the same bank, are taking on an expensive picture. Even they had to know that all the signs were there. Showgirls was going to be a hard sell for the American public. In 1990, the Motion Picture Association of America, or MPAA, changed the previous X rating to NC-17, meaning that no children under 17 would be admitted to a film. They did this largely because pornography companies had taken on the X rating, and you can't really copyright a single letter, so NC-17 it is. A lot of filmmakers have clauses in their contracts that state that no more than an R or restricted rating can be delivered with a final film. After their bad experience on Basic Instinct, a film that needed multiple trims to get an R rating, Eszterhas and Verhoeven made sure that that clause was not in their contract for Showgirls. So MGM was taking on a project they knew for certain was going to get an NC-17 rating. I mean, that's fine, but there is a stigma that comes with the NC-17 rating. Most newspapers or television shows won't run ads for NC-17 films, but MGM's theory seemed to be make a big noise. After they bought the property, they seemed to make a big deal about how they were keen to allow the NC-17 rating for the film. They were creating a demand in the public for the film, putting pressure on theaters to house the film and television to talk about the film. It worked, and the train keeps on picking up speed. Back with the production, according to Parrish, Eszterhas and Verhoeven were having trouble finding actors for their film. In June of 1994, it was rumored that Drew Barrymore was in the lead to play the film's heroine, Nomi Malone. But that did not happen. Madonna was in the conversation to play the second lead, a veteran topless performer named Crystal Connors. That didn't happen either. The film's ballooning budget was a consideration when looking for actors, so they decided to pick from relative unknowns, including future Oscar winner Charlize Theron. But the role of Nomi Malone ultimately went to Elizabeth Berkley, who played Jessie Spano on Saved by the Bell, while Gina Gershon would be hired to play Nomi's rival, Crystal. I'm just going to shoot you straight here. Casting Elizabeth Berkley is what took this film from a minor curiosity to a major talker. There's a taboo factor at play with Berkley. She was fresh off her stint on Saved by the Bell, and now she's bearing it all for the camera. Casting Berkley automatically made Showgirls a must-see for American men of a certain age. The girl next door goes raunchy. Count me in, right? The final main character would be the character of Zach Carey. He's the entertainment director at the Stardust Casino, who would be played by David Lynch favorite Kyle MacLachlan. When Showgirls completed filming in the spring of 1995, MGM was powerless to stop its momentum. Instead, they embarked on a loud promotional effort. Commercials were made with only NBC refusing to air them. Newspapers were peppered with Showgirls ads. A trailer was cut and shown without incident at R-rated theaters. But this was not enough for MGM. They cut an 8-minute explicit trailer that people could get at their favorite video rental stores free of charge. Esterhaus spoke openly about the NC-17 rating, urging teenagers to see the film, stating, "Don't let anyone stop you from seeing this movie. You'll love the music and the dance, and the message will find an echo in your hearts." Joe Esterhaus would then take out a full-page ad in Variety, slamming MGM for their male-oriented marketing campaign for the film. He urged female filmgoers to see the film and make their own conclusions. Hype was at a fever pitch. Entertainment Tonight was talking about the film. Both Gershon and Berkeley talked to David Letterman. Through star power, marketing, and raunch-filled hype, Showgirls was a full-fledged cultural phenomenon. Universal's Henry and June, the first film to receive an NC-17 rating, would premiere in 700 theaters. 5 years later, Showgirls would premiere in 1,388 theaters. But when the film premiered, people were shocked by what they saw. Shocked indeed.
Thrust it! Thrust it! Thrust it! Come on, thrust it! Bob! Okay. That's enough. Thank you, ladies.